Hey everybody, welcome to First Fridays with McEntee Law Group. I'm Catherine Del Rosario. I'm one of the attorneys here. I'm just going to wait a few more seconds for people to roll in, but let me explain what we're doing today. Our team likes to hop on here once a month to answer your immigration questions. And so throughout the past couple of weeks, we asked you to send some in. But throughout this live, you can also submit your questions here, and I'll do my best to answer them. And then I'll also go through some recent immigration news. So as always, I am an attorney. I'm not your attorney necessarily. So this should be taken as general information, not exactly legal advice. You'll always want to consult with an attorney or an accredited rep about your situation because every person's case is different. All right. Hey, everyone who's joined. We can get started now. So there are a few pretty important news items that I want to cover. The first one relates to something called Title 42 and parole. You may have kind of heard these terms being thrown around in the last couple of years, but basically the president announced, I think just yesterday, that he was going to be expanding Title 42 and humanitarian parole programs for people from Nicaragua, Cuba, and Haiti. And so, basically what Title 42 does is for people who present themselves at the southern border, asking for safety, protection from the place that they're coming from, this law allows the US government to send them straight back without any kind of interview process. And so the government's kind of response to this is expanding humanitarian parole. And so this program is modeled after what's already been created for folks from Venezuela. It provides a legal pathway for migrants from these three countries that I named, Nicaragua, Cuba, and Haiti, to temporarily live in the US. Now, they have to fulfill certain requirements, including having a financial sponsor in the US. And so there's a lot of, we're probably going to hear much more about this. I don't think anyone is particularly happy about this piece of news, but we'll keep you updated. The next thing is that the Department of Homeland Security announced that they're extending and redesignating the nation of Yemen for TPS, or temporary protected status. So the extension is for another 18 months, and it allows Yemeni nationals and people who don't have a nationality but last lived in Yemen, who've been continuously residing in the United States since December of 2022, to apply for TPS for the first time. This would also allow them to apply for a work permit. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to cover, which I think will be really important for a lot of folks who are considering maybe taking action on their immigration status. USCIS has proposed a rule that would increase the filing fees. So as you know, when you hire an attorney, the attorney has their fees that they charge, and then the government charges their own fees, and we can never really do anything about those fees. And they've steadily kind of increased over the years. So another increase is being proposed. And some of them are small increases, like about 5%, and some of them are very high, almost 2,000% for one type of case. So just to give you an example, citizenship, which normally costs $725, is raising to $760. So that's a 5% increase. The I-130 petition, which is, typically the first step that a relative takes to bring their family to the US or let their family stay here, currently costs $535 to file, and it's going to increase. Well, the proposal is that it should increase to $820. So that's a 53% increase. Typically, someone will eventually file a green card application if they're here in the United States. The filing fee for that right now is $1,225, and the proposed increase is $2,170. Probably the most One of the highest percentage increases that I'm seeing is for H-1B registration. So it's January now. For those who are considering applying for the H-1B, we know that the lottery will open up in the spring. And currently, to register a person, just to get their foot in the door, put them in the lottery, it costs $10. And the proposal is to increase that to $215 just just for a lottery ticket. So that's 2,050%. Where, and following that, if you're selected, your attorney would then file the H-1B case, and that has a form and that has a fee. Currently, the base fee for the H-1B is $460. The proposed increase is to $780. And so, not to throw anyone into a panic just yet, these type of changes have to be opened up for comments. And so immigration advocates, attorneys, and clients can submit their comments and what they think about these changes, these proposed changes. And so these comments are due by March 6th. So nothing is set in stone, but typically, when fee increases are proposed, they will increase. They tend to increase at least somewhat. I would say that the takeaway for all of us is, if you think you might be eligible for something like citizenship, or you considering petitioning a relative, now would be the time to consult with an attorney or an accredited rep, and I would move on that now before these increases, become official. So if you have any questions at all about your situation, what your options are, please contact us. Like, we'd love to chat with you and see if maybe we can get moving on that now. And then another item is that the Department of State has extended its interview waivers for certain non-immigrant visa applicants. So if you are a student, or you're in an academic J visa, an H-1B, an O, or a P, as well as some other categories, Department of State is allowing consular officers, so the people who work at the embassies, to waive in-person interview for some of these categories on a case-by-case basis. And so so far, like, this has been the practice, and it's reduced the number of visa appointments at many embassies, which we know have really, slowed down their operations and are understaffed and have been really through it during the pandemic and afterwards. So, but again, this is on a case-by-case basis, this policy. So you'll always want to check with the embassy website and with your attorney on what the latest practice at that consulate will be. All right. If you have any questions, again, feel free to drop them in the comments. Let me see if any have come through now. I think one thing that I've been hearing lately is, like, what does the citizenship process look like? What's all involved there? So I can go through that real quick too. Basically, as with everything in immigration, there's a form. But what we're seeing right now is that the government is really prioritizing citizenship. So this is really a great time to apply. We've seen processing times reduce quite a bit for citizenship, where it was like normally taking a year or sometimes longer. We're seeing some processing times at like 6 or 8 months. And so what the process looks like with us is we'd gather some of your basic information, your immigration history, any criminal history that you might have. We'll evaluate it and make sure that you're eligible. We'll file a form for you, and then we submit that filing, we submit that case to the USCIS, and when it's time, you get scheduled for your naturalization interview. So what it looks like is you'll go into the immigration office with your attorney, hopefully, and you'll go through all of your information that was on that application. you'll also have a civics exam. So this like has to do with US history, and some politics. And there's like a bank of about 100 questions. And the officer will ask you maybe, well, they can ask you 10 of them, and you need to get 6 right. But if you get the first 6 right, then they'll stop there and they'll let you know that you've passed. And then some officers are kind enough to let you know at the end if they've approved your case, but not always. Sometimes they have to hold your case for review, if they have like a long backlog or caseload. They want to make sure that they're reviewing everything carefully, and then they'll send you an oath ceremony notice in the mail. But I've talked to a lot of clients that say like, I had a DUI, I was arrested a few years ago, and they don't even think that they're eligible. It's not even possible. And so I just, reiterate, everyone's case is really different. And so don't think that this is not in the cards for you. Like, let's talk about it and go through all your history so we can just make sure. Okay, one question we got. I'm a US citizen, and I've been told that my spouse, who's undocumented, will have to leave the US to obtain a green card. Why? Okay, so they might. And one of the most common reasons is, in order for someone to get a green card while they're here in the United States, they have to meet certain requirements. And so one of those is that they have a lawful entry. And so if your spouse or your family member was brought into the United States, like through a border, they don't have a valid visa, this might be one reason. And so they'd have to, yes, go abroad to complete their green card process. Sometimes, again, like every case is different, but this is usually the reason why. And there may be a way around that, but we just have to talk to you more about it. Okay, another question is, I was a legal permanent resident when I filed an I-130 family petition for a family member, but now I am a US citizen. What should I do? Okay. So it may be the case that you yourself, will change, your own status will change while you're petitioning a family member. And so that's what this person is talking about. They had a green card and now they themselves have become a US citizen. And so depending on the relationship between you and your family member, it may be the case that now there's no visa. They don't have to wait for a visa, that maybe one is immediately available to them. But it just depends. Are they your spouse? Are they your child? Are they your sibling? And so there might no longer be a wait time for that person. It could depend. And the visa bulletin is a strange thing. So you might assume that before, when you had a green card, that the wait time for your family member was longer, and now that you're a citizen, it's shorter. It just depends on that month and what the lines look like. So you'll want to chat to us about it and see what the current trend is for your particular category, because you might want to stay in the category that you're in. Okay, my B1 visa, B1, B2 visa expires in August. Can I travel in February on this visa or have to apply for a new one? Will there be any issues at the port of entry if I use the current visa? So as long as your visa is valid, you can travel on it. Theoretically, you can go in and out with that visa, but it always remains the case that you have to prove that same intent. So that B1 intent, that B2 intent, which is temporary, and you've got to prove your intent to return to your home country. And so while, yes, I would say you can travel on it, issues can always come up at the border. can ask you about your activities the last time you were visiting, what your planned activities are this time around. It really depends on the officer you get, and unfortunately, sometimes it depends on their mood that day. So you'll want to have plenty of documentation showing the anticipated end date of your trip, the tourist activities that you've got planned. Just know that they can look in your phone, they can look in your laptop. So just be mindful of that. And if there are any particular concerns that you have about this upcoming trip, feel free to contact us and we can talk about it. And that goes for any type of visa, so not just B1, B2, but as long as that visa is valid and you've been maintaining your status, you can theoretically travel on it. Okay, let's see. We can kind of preview to this. It's a little bit early, no problem. A little bit early, but if you're thinking about the H-1B cap, we are thinking about it too. This is a lottery event that happens every year for specialty occupations. And while we don't quite have the exact timeline or deadlines from the government yet, what we can anticipate is that we'll be able to start registering people in the spring, and then we'll find out usually by the end of March if you've been selected in the cap. We call this lottery the cap, and then we will file your case if you're selected around June, and so your status will kick in October on October 1st if this is your first time applying for an H-1B. And if you've never heard these letters, we throw around a lot of letters in this field, but H-1B is for specialty occupations that require at least a bachelor's degree in a specific field. Some of the most common ones that we see are in the tech and finance industry, but lots of other occupations also qualify. We also can help you with a cap exempt petition. So if you work, let's say, for a nonprofit research institution or a nonprofit that has a relationship with a university, or you work for a university, you may be able to also get an H-1B any time of the year. This is like one of my favorite types of cases to work on. And so if this is you, if you're in this position, you're wondering if this might be a good fit, would also love to talk to you about that. Okay. This is kind of a fun one, but what's it like to be an immigration attorney and how do you become one? Okay. I'd love to answer that. You got to go to law school. Or if you're going to be an accredited representative, which is the only other type of person that can help you with your immigration case, you can become accredited. So if, law school is pretty straightforward. You go for 3 years, you take the bar exam, and you can practice immigration law in any state because immigration is federal. So I also love that about this field, it allows some flexibility and mobility in your life. Alternatively, you can become an accredited representative. So what that means is the federal government created a program that allows certain qualifying nonprofits to offer immigration legal services. And so the people that work at those nonprofits have to be trained to practice immigration law. The things to note: these nonprofits only do immigration law, so it doesn't allow them to practice any kind of law. This is different than a notario, so I will always warn you against getting immigration help from a notario because they're not licensed or accredited to be able to do this work. Um, and to become an accredited rep, you have to do a certain number of hours of training in immigration law. You have to shadow an attorney or an organization. And the really important thing to note is that your accreditation only exists, in tandem with the recognized organization. So you can't just be out here practicing, but you're with a trusted, um, accredited nonprofit that does this and that this is their mission. If you are going the law school route, good luck. I feel you. If you're thinking about what kind of classes to take, most law schools should have some immigration classes, at least basics in law and policy. Hopefully they have legal writing classes, because that is really the most practical thing that you can do, is take an immigration legal writing class. You're going to use that skill all the time. And then intern. If you're lucky enough to have an immigration clinic at your law school, congrats, and definitely work with them. You'll get some of the best experience of your life just working with, most likely, the most vulnerable families or refugees and immigrants that really rely on nonprofits and law schools to help to take on really complicated cases. So you're going to get amazing experience. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions, but you can always contact us for a consultation, a quick chat, and we'd love to help you out. We will be back next month with our partner Ray McEntee, and so thanks everyone who tuned in, or if you're watching this later on, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.